while Biden emphasized the importance of working together on global issues like climate change.
Don't trust China. China is asshole.
You lose the right to self-defense when you're the one who brought the gun.
Expect to see new signs all around the city that say your tax dollars at work next to a big mound of dirt that sits there for 5 years.
The Rittenhouse trial had its closing arguments yesterday. Joe Biden signed the big infrastructure deal. We'll talk more about that. And also, Joe Biden had his first meeting with President Xi as the President of the United States and said some things that I didn't really care for at all. All of that and more coming up on this episode of Daily Caller Live. My name is Jobob. Daily Caller Live starts right now.
3, 2, 1.
Here we go.
That might be the only brown guy on earth named Jobob. That is actually their name, Jobob.
Live from a dingy bunker completely cut off from the outside world, except for you fine folks. My name is Jobob. This is Daily Caller Live. Thanks so much for tuning in on today. It is November 16th, the year of our Lord 2021. We've got a lot of stuff to get to. The Kyle Rittenhouse case had their closing arguments yesterday. The jury is back today and probably will be deliberating today and most likely coming out with a verdict today, I think. But maybe I'm wrong. Joe Biden also signed the infrastructure deal, the infrastructure that's not actually infrastructure and is mostly Democrat wish list nonsense. He also had a meeting with President Xi yesterday of China, which I think is the most important thing in America right now. Liz Cheney got booted from the Wyoming Republican Party. All of that and more coming up. I want to get to at the very beginning, in the very onset of this Kyle Rittenhouse closing arguments case. The defense, so the prosecution yesterday made their closing arguments in the Kyle Rittenhouse case, and they were not good. I've got one clip to play for you, and the reason there's only that one clip is because it pretty much sums up everything that the defense or the prosecution was trying to say in their closing argument. And basically, it is that they did not have any good closing arguments. Watch this, and we'll discuss on the other side.
Convince you that Joseph Rosenbaum was going to take that gun and use it on the defendant because they know you can't claim self-defense against an unarmed man like this. You lose the right to self-defense when you're the one who brought the gun, when you're the one creating the danger, when you're the one provoking other people. The defendant fired 4 shots at Joseph Rosenbaum and caused 5 wounds total.
So that is the prosecution in the Kyle Rittenhouse case making some very bad arguments. What they said basically was, if you brought a gun, you lose your right to self-defense, which is ridiculous. And here's the thing. Here's where maybe we might disagree. I think the prosecution knows that it's a ridiculous argument, but they're given a bad case and a bad set of circumstances and trying to make something out of nothing, because that is their job. The state's job is to prosecute and bring a prosecution trial to the Kyle Rittenhouse case, even though there's no real good arguments. And I think that sums it up pretty much entirely. The entire prosecution basically summed up in a small bit right there, basically saying that if you bring a gun, you can't claim self-defense. Yes, it's stupid. Yes, it's absolutely ridiculous. And the only caveat that I would give is that they had a bad case to begin with. I want to get a couple takes from around the internet that I think were interesting. So one of the big things too here that the prosecution said was he was still 4 feet away. Why'd you fire when he was still 4 feet away? Again, bad argument, but given a bad case. If you're 4 feet away from somebody, that is a very close distance. They can close that gap almost instantaneously. So bringing that up at all is, again, grasping at straws that they don't have. The police officers, I believe, say that if your gun is holstered and the person that is charging at you is 21 feet away, you don't have time to pull the gun out of your holster. They'll close that gap before. So again, the prosecution saying that 4 feet, he was still 4 feet away. Why did you fire at him? Is a ridiculous argument. And they know it's ridiculous because they don't have any good arguments to make. He also said, the prosecution said, well, he used the Roadhouse clip. If you remember the movie Roadhouse with Patrick Swayze, talking about a bar fight. You can't kill anybody with your fists, which is, again, bad argument, but he had a bad hand. He was dealt a bad hand. This, as far as I'm concerned, as far as pretty much anybody who's being honest with themselves is concerned, this case is open and shut self-defense. The prosecution had a bad hand to play and is playing it, I guess, the best they can. I don't really want to say the best they can because they're making terrible arguments. But again, they don't have anything to argue with. So he brought up the Roadhouse clip and said, well, if you're in a fist fight, they can't kill you with their fists, except for all of the people throughout the history of time that have been killed with fists. These were a couple takes from around the internet that I thought were really interesting. Matt Walsh, hosts a show on Daily Wire, said this: Jacob Blake accosted his rape victim, then pulled a knife on the cops and tried to steal a vehicle with a child inside. He was shot justifiably. The media lied, provoked riots leading to the Rittenhouse shooting, which they also lied about. They are the true enemy of the people, which I would have to say I can't disagree with that. Basically, it sums up pretty well the entire reason that Kyle Rittenhouse was there. Now, should he have been there with a gun? Should a 17-year-old show up to a riot with a gun? Probably not. Just lay that out there. We're smart enough to have two thoughts in our head at the same time. Should he have been there? Probably not. But Matt Walsh is also saying there wouldn't have been any riots if the media didn't completely lie about the Jacob Blake situation. Like he said, he had accosted his rape victim, pulled a knife on the cops, then tried to steal a car with a child inside. I don't know if he was trying to steal the car. I don't actually remember if the car is his or not. But there was a kid inside. He was trying to get away, pulled a knife on the cops, trying to drive away. As a police officer, you don't know what's going to happen after that. You have to act accordingly. The DA in Kenosha, Wisconsin, I believe it was the DA or it was the police. They basically said that the cops were in the right, which they were. Then the media continued to lie about it, which led to the riots. You wouldn't have had the riots if the media didn't continue to lie about the Jacob Blake shooting, which again was totally justified in the eyes of the law. If none of that happened, Kyle Rittenhouse wouldn't have shown up to the riot with a gun. Notwithstanding, he probably shouldn't have brought a gun to a riot. We can all have two thoughts in our head at the same time. But nevertheless, Ayanna Pressley, who's a congresswoman, tweeted this way back when. This is how the left has been categorizing this, and this is how we've gotten to this point. Ayanna Pressley tweeted, a 17-year-old white supremacist domestic terrorist drove across state lines armed with an AR-15. He shot and killed two people who had assembled to affirm the value, dignity, and worth of Black lives. Fix your damn headlines, says Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley. Holy cow. It's no wonder people are so ill-informed and up in arms about this case, because you have people in Congress saying nonsense garbage like that. This is what I thought. Oh, so before we get to the most interesting thing that I've been saying for weeks now, Vivek Ramaswamy said the judge in the Rittenhouse trial had to instruct the jury to ignore statements made by the President of the United States about the defendant. If you recall, Joe Biden essentially called Kyle Rittenhouse a white supremacist. Holy cow, that is where we are. And that's what his tweet said. That says a lot about where we are as a country right now. This is another interesting tweet that I've been saying for weeks. Scott Adams, of Dilbert fame, said something super interesting that I've been saying for weeks now. He tweeted, just saw a clip of Toobin on CNN saying the Rittenhouse jury instructions were botched. Scott Adams is saying that he saw Jeffrey Toobin. We're not going to make that joke. Scott Adams said he saw Jeffrey Toobin on CNN saying that the jury instructions were completely botched. He goes on to say that that is how you turn an acquittal into a riot. We now have a CNN argument for why the verdict won't be legit. Coming from CNN. He says next, Don Lemon will tell us white supremacists got away with murder. Again, I've been saying this for weeks. The way the media is covering this is dangerous. And when the verdict comes in that he's not guilty on the murder counts, on the homicide counts, people are going to lose their mind, unjustifiably so, in the same way that the media caused the riots in Kenosha to begin with. They lied about the Jacob Blake situation. They continue to lie about all of the things going on surrounding this, which caused the riot in the first place. Scott Adams is right. This is how you turn a verdict into a riot. Again, mentioned this. I've been saying this for weeks now. The way the media is handling the Rittenhouse case is dangerous, and it's going to provoke not good situations around the country. Let's only hope that your big cities who have had riots in their streets for the last year wise up and squash those before they become dangerous to the society and the community that they are in. Want to move on from that. We'll get more of that. Obviously, we'll keep everybody updated. You don't need to watch any of the news. You just need to watch this news. But we'll keep everybody updated on what happens in that house or in that trial as it goes on. Let me see if there's any comments that we could be reading. Yeah, there's some good ones here, but I can't use them because you guys use cuss words in them. I can't bring them on the screen. So make your point in a more family-friendly way, and then we could have them on the screen and we can discuss. I mostly can put this up. Let's go, Brandon, says Marcus Gunderson. Yeah, can't disagree. Kimber Wolf says, let's go, Brandon, also. So make your comments, but make them in a way that I can bring them on the screen. I'd love to interact with you guys as you're watching this live stream. This is interesting. So we want to shift topics here. Joe Biden yesterday signed the infrastructure bill, which is only, 22% infrastructure, according to the Wall Street Journal. He signed the infrastructure bill. This was a clip from Bill Maher on Friday that I think he hit the nail on the head. I think we can all agree that this is how infrastructure projects work in the United States. Watch this clip. We'll discuss on the other side. This is hilarious from Bill Maher.
But help is on the way, or maybe this will make it worse. I don't know. But Biden is going to sign the big $1.2 trillion infrastructure bill on Monday. Expect to see new signs all around the city that say your tax dollars at work, next to a big mound of dirt that sits there for 5 years. That's my experience. But
so it's seriously, that is the experience that pretty much all of us have. Your tax dollars at work, and then nothing gets done for a decade. Man, there's so many stories like that in California where we're doing an infrastructure, we're building this bridge, we're revamping the infrastructure of our great state. And turns out 15, 20 years later where something finally gets done. And by that time, the infrastructure that they built is completely obsolete. But I did want to get to a couple of the points on the quote unquote infrastructure bill that you might find interesting. First things first, $1.2 trillion in spending that the Biden administration just approved. And guess what? They're still saying that it's going to cost $0. Go figure. The Biden administration saying that, well, the infrastructure bill is going to cost $0, even though it costs $1.2 trillion. So there's that. There's also the fact that the infrastructure bill actually accounted for about 22% actual infrastructure. I believe that was the Wall Street Journal that was saying that at the very beginning, when it passed the Senate first, I believe it was the Wall Street Journal that said, there's 25% of this that is actually going to roads, bridges, airports, all of your actual hard infrastructure. The rest of it is going to a bunch of nonsense that is on the Democrat wish list. Now, you may have some differing opinions on how Republicans should have responded to that. People like Marco Rubio, Ted Cruz came out after the Senate voted on it and said, look, we had to. This was the best deal that we were going to get. If we didn't do this, they were going to push through some other crazy bill, and maybe they would get Joe Manchin on their side. So Republicans in the Senate were basically saying that we just had to do it. There was no other way around it. But I want to get to this. This is an article from earlier this year. And this is an article from not a conservative-leaning outlet. The Washington Post, Charles Lane writes in the Washington Post. This is an opinion piece, again, in the Washington Jeff Bezos-owned Post. Not a conservative news outlet, and a pretty lefty news outlet, if anything. So that shows you that this is probably pretty sound if they're making an argument for the conservative side. It's probably pretty based in reality. This is from that article that he wrote earlier this year. The real challenge is to take what is any reasonable measure. Can't read this morning. We're take two. cut that out of the actual live broadcast. We'll edit that out. The real challenge is to take what is by any reasonable measure the best or nearly the best infrastructure in the world and sustain improvements that are already been occurring over the recent years. Basically, what this article is saying, the infrastructure is not crumbling at all. People use that constantly, and admittedly, Republicans say this too. Republicans and Democrats say we need to fix our crumbling infrastructure. But by all accounts, the infrastructure is not crumbling. Are there problems that need to be addressed regarding infrastructure? Absolutely. But did you know this? We already spend almost $500 billion every single year on infrastructure. The federal government does. Now, I'm of the mind of why is the federal government even doing that? Yeah, maybe the interstates and maybe the airports, but local bridges and local roads, why is that a federal issue at all? Just get the community together or get the county or even the state. You can even do it at the state level to fix your roads, highways, and bridges. But nevertheless, everybody in the federal government, Republicans and Democrats, say that, whoa, the infrastructure is crumbling. But again, by all accounts, no, it is not. Biden warned the U.S. infrastructure is ranked 13th in the world, as if it were a shameful outscore about 90% of the 141 economies analyzed in the 2019 World Economic Forum. So basically, this guy's saying, Charles Lane is saying that Biden says, whoa, we rank 13% or 13th among the entire world, which still puts us in the 90th percentile. And again, do I want to be number one? Absolutely, it would be great to be number one. But I don't know if you know this, but we just came out of the most expensive and most economically devastating coronavirus pandemic emergency in the entire history of the country. Now is not the time to be putting money into infrastructure that doesn't need money to be put into it in the first place. He goes on in the Washington Post to say the big picture, though, is that a gigantic U.S. infrastructure is fundamentally the gigantic U.S. infrastructure as a whole is fundamentally sound. Impressively, but not surprisingly, given that the government at all levels spent $370 billion on it in 2018, $284 billion in 2008, according to official data. Recent projects included $18 billion of the modernization of New York's LaGuardia Airport, a $4.4 billion bridge connecting Detroit to Windsor, Ontario, and a more than $2.4 billion overhaul of Central Florida's I-4 highway. To repeat, there's no reason for complacency about the U.S. infrastructure, yet alarmist generalizations don't help us identify the more pressing issues that actually exist. What he's saying is that the U.S. infrastructure overwhelmingly is great. Again, this is the Washington Post. You can fact check this for yourself. Just go ahead and Google U.S. infrastructure not crumbling, and you'll find article after article after article from liberal outlets, from conservative outlets, from straight down the middle outfits, if those exist at all, that will all say the U.S. infrastructure is not actually crumbling. Yet we continue to spend trillions of dollars on it. The word infrastructure should be stricken from the verbiage that politicians use, or at least that we take in. When people say infrastructure, it isn't automatically a good thing as it used to be in decades past. The United States is in the 90th percentile of best infrastructure in the world. And we already spend billions and billions and billions of dollars on it. We don't need this massive infrastructure, especially after we're coming out of the worst economic crisis we've seen in the country's history. That's like you had a heart surgery, open heart surgery that cost you an arm and a leg. Thankfully, you survived, but you're now massively in debt because of a huge health problem. Guess what you should do? Buy a brand new Lamborghini. That's what the United States is doing, or at least what it seems to be doing with this infrastructure bill. To stay on the Biden topic, I want to talk about this. This is actually the most important thing that I think we can all be talking about. If you haven't already, if you're watching this, click the share button. It's right down here because people need to see this. This is important. I think it's the most pressing issue that Americans face as a whole today, in today's time. Biden met with Xi yesterday virtually in a video conference last night. not to reset the entire relationship with China, but China's trying to eat our lunch. China is trying to take over the world. And I know that sounds like hyperbole, but it's not. China has a whole of society effort to become the world's dominant power throughout the entire world. And they don't make any secrets about that. They outwardly say that. At the 100th anniversary of the Communist Party in China, President Xi basically said, yeah, we want to be the world dominating superpower. Currently, the financial hub of the world is New York City. They want to make it Beijing. They're not making any secrets about that. I want to play a clip from Reuters that kind of outlines what Joe Biden talked with President Xi about in their video conference last night. Check this out.
U.S. President Joe Biden and Chinese President Xi Jinping saw a reset in relations on Monday, stressing open communication and friendly competition between the two countries as they sat for hours of virtual talks. The virtual summit was aimed at relieving tensions between Beijing and Washington, which have stepped up over trade negotiations, Beijing's expanding nuclear arsenal, and Taiwan. In a statement released after the meeting, the White House said Biden reaffirmed America's commitment to the One China policy, just as Xi warned against crossing the, quote, red line of Taiwan, which Beijing claims as its own. Calling Biden an old friend, Xi stressed the need for mutual respect, while Biden emphasized the importance of working together on global issues like climate change.
That right there is what I think I was the most irritated about. With everything going on, what Reuters said is Joe Biden addressed issues like climate change. I'll tell you one thing's for sure. I was talking about this yesterday, went on a big long screed about it yesterday. I'm not going to relive that. But China doesn't care about climate change at all. They have one goal, and that is to be the world-dominating superpower. That is it. That is all they care about, and they have a whole of society effort to make it so. So if Joe Biden is talking about climate change, you need to get on board with climate change. President Xi is sitting there going, oh, yeah, climate change. We really care about that. Well, absolutely. You got it. We will do that, good sir. In reality, they don't care at all. They've every single climate promise that China has made, they've completely and utterly broken. If you want to actually affect the CO2 emissions around the world, we've got to go to war with China and probably India. That is just the reality of the situation, because guess what? China continues to lie about how much they're going to curb the climate change effects that their country is outputting. But again, absolutely ridiculous how that's a thing that needs to be talked about. This was interesting. I wanted to read this because it's kind of telling about how your media is handling the situation. This is from the Associated Press. They say Chinese foreign minister spokesperson, not even going to try to pronounce that name, said the exchange was candid and constructive. If China-U.S. relations cannot return to the past, they should face on the future, Zhao said. Calling the meeting a positive, trying to reset positive expectations with China-U.S. relations. This is what makes me so angry. Everybody wants to go back to the way things were. You know why they want to go back to the way things were? This includes China. This includes Europe. Barack Obama didn't say, we just paid for pretty much everything when Barack Obama was in office. And also George Bush to a big extent. The entire world depends on the United States to be the world police. And guess who foots the bill for that? The U.S. taxpayer. When Donald Trump came into office, he said, nah. And this is not an advocacy or anything like that. This is just what happened. Donald Trump said, no, you guys are going to pay. You're going to pay your fair share. Maybe Bernie Sanders would have liked that. But the rest of the EU, China included, all of these other countries that depend on the U.S. to keep them safe didn't chip in at all. It's basically the U.S. taxpayer paying for the U.S. military to enforce shipping lanes, to enforce all of keep terrorists at bay in the Middle East. And nobody else was paying for that. Donald Trump came in and said, all right, this has got to stop. We have to take account for the fact that nobody else is chipping in. It's like going to a meal and everybody orders whatever the heck they want, and we foot the bill for it. Same sort of thing happened in China. The trade relations with China and the United States were super advantageous for China. Donald Trump came in and said, look, okay, you guys are a pretty well-developed economy now. In the 70s, when all of these trade tariffs were all put in place, China was a third world country and absolutely just a complete nothing of a problem. The whole Nixon went to China, all that sort of stuff, opened up China to a broader sense of trading with the globe, with America and around the world. Then, over time, China has now become a dominant superpower on the world stage. And we still have those super old tariffs in place that completely and utterly give an advantage to China. When people talk about wanting to go back to the old ways, it's going back to that which we should not do. One of the things that Donald Trump did that was very successful was turn the American eye toward the relationship with China. Now, if China is saying that we want to go back to the old way, I would hope that Joe Biden doesn't say, yes, diplomacy, we love this. Now, is diplomacy better than war? Absolutely. But at the same time, you have to be tough on the Chinese because they're taking advantage of the United States constantly and forever and have been doing so since they became an operating power on the world stage. If we go back to pre-Trump relationships with China, they're going to continue their march to become the one and only global superpower, and we can't do that. Holy cow, went on a little bit of a tirade there. Let me get back to this article that I thought was interesting. Oh, this is how the media talks about this. This unicorn fantasy idea of relationships with China. The two nations were aiming to end the sharp deterioration in relations that were accelerated under the former U.S. President Donald Trump. That is how the media is talking about it. And again, this is not a good view to have because objectively, Donald Trump tried to level the playing field. Currently, again, China has a huge advantage when it comes to trade and trade negotiations between the United States and the rest of the world. Donald Trump said, no, you don't get those benefits anymore because you're clearly a manufacturing powerhouse, not like you were in the 70s. But again, the Associated Press said the two nations were trying to end sharp deterioration. I would not call the Chinese relationship, what it morphed into under Donald Trump, a deterioration. But that is how the media covers it. This was also interesting. This is from The Hill. They say Joe Biden reiterates the one China policy, which is a complete and utter reversal of what he said on the town hall on CNN. President Biden on Monday reiterated the administration's commitment to the one China policy on Taiwan during a virtual meeting with President Xi, clearing up remarks last month he made that the U.S. would come to the defense of Taiwan if China attacked Taiwan. The whole one China policy thing it's complicated. I'm not going to say it's an easy thing for a president to handle. I'm not going to bash on Biden for an unfair, not going to say, oh, this is super easy. But the United States needs to figure this out. The president, his administration, the generals that advise the president, Congress even, needs to take some sort of action in terms of making a decision on how we're going to handle Taiwan. Currently, we have a strategic ambiguity of Taiwan. Are we going to defend them? Maybe not. Maybe we're going to. Maybe we're not. But strategic ambiguity is the official stance of the United States and the military. But also, Joe Biden is saying, oh, we believe in one China. Then one China policy means that China and Taiwan are one and that China will inevitably go and try and take Taiwan. That is going to be a huge problem, and I'm hoping that somebody gets a more clear definition of how we're going to handle Taiwan if and when China does attack. All of this being said, China's trying to eat America's lunch. They're trying to become the one dominant global superpower. They also have huge human rights issues. We're going to go big on this later in the week, but I want to talk about the massive human rights problems that are existing in China. And I think this is a thing that we can agree with our liberal friends on, that China, what they're doing in the Xinjiang province with the Uyghur Muslims in the concentration camps that they have, the forced labor, slavery going on in China, I think we can agree with our liberal friends that needs to stop. That is not good. Yet, on February 4th, we're going to kick off the Olympics in China, and all the world will see what China wants them to see in Beijing. Again, we're going to go big on this later on in the week because I want to start this sort of movement. It is ridiculous. Well, I'll skip to the punchline here. It is ridiculous that we're going to go to the Olympics. We boycotted the Olympics before. I think we should boycott them again because there is so much craziness going on with U.S.-China relationships, and also what China is doing domestically is absolutely atrocious. I think we should boycott the Beijing Olympics. We'll get into more of all of the reasons why, kind of making a series out of this. But if we go to the Olympics, it's going to be absolutely astounding. I think somebody needs to pull the trigger, and I think we should not go and give China the attention that they want from the Olympics. Last thing I want to talk about today is this. This is, I don't know, maybe a little bit funny, maybe not. But Liz Cheney was booted from the Wyoming GOP. Wyoming GOP does not like Liz Cheney. This is, listen to this. The Wyoming Republican Party, I believe this is from CBS News, voted this weekend they would no longer recognize Congresswoman Liz Cheney, who represents the state, as a member of their party. Cheney is one of 10 Republicans who voted to impeach President Trump over the second impeachment, and has also made the rounds constantly bashing her own party. So the Wyoming Republican Party said, you're not one of us anymore. Does that actually matter? We'll see. We'll see in 2022 if Liz Cheney can hold on to her seat in Wyoming. I would imagine that there's going to be a formidable Republican trying to primary her, and we'll see if they're successful. I would imagine it's going to be very difficult and very costly for Liz Cheney to hold on to that seat if she wishes to do so. That's going to do it for us today. Thanks so much for tuning in. We really appreciate everybody, taking the time to listen and watch. We've got, a lot more coming up tomorrow. I think there's going to be some movement in the Rittenhouse case. I'm not sure if it's happening right now. I'm not sure if Daily Caller is taking it live right now. But it'll be interesting to see what comes out of that Rittenhouse case. Again, we'll bring you all of the details that you need to know when you need to know them. And, we'll keep you posted on all the stuff that's going on. The infrastructure bill, what Joe Biden says on a week-to-week basis. That's what we're trying to do here, trying to inform in somewhat of a more lighthearted way, albeit it's been pretty difficult the last couple of weeks because all the craziness surrounding the political nature and political news has been difficult, to say the least. But thanks so much for tuning in. If you want, you can drop us an email at dclive@dailycaller.com. You can send us anything you want. Send us commentary. Send us something that maybe we should be talking about. Eventually, we're going to do a daily mail segment in the show where we read emails. We're still kind of bolstering that up and getting it moving. So if you have any comments, concerns, questions, don't send questions. I can't answer a lot of questions. There've been quite a few questions in the comment. I can't get to all of them. But if you have commentary or things that you think would be interesting on the show, go ahead and email dclive@dailycaller.com. We'll see if we can get to them on our daily mail segment when it comes up. Also, if you haven't already, I'd really appreciate a follow on any of the social media accounts at Jobob. Just type in Jobob pretty much anywhere. You'll find me. You can get all the fun shirts I wear on those social media accounts. Also, we can stay in touch. I'm hilarious on the internet, so I think you should follow me. That's just me. Unbiased opinion there. Definitely right down the middle opinion on that one. I'm hilarious. That's why you should follow me on all the social media accounts. We could stay connected and go back and forth there. That's going to do it for us today. Appreciate you taking the time to take a listen. We'll see you right back here tomorrow. God bless America.